So here we are in our next lesson, and we're ready to talk about our other render elements. We've seen multimats, and we'll see in post-production how they can help us. But let's just take a slow look at these render mats and every single one that I use. I don't use many. As you can see, I've just pulled down the menu. So let's see our RGB channel. I've just taken out the trees just so it's easier and it's also rendered faster. And alpha we don't really have, but alpha is generally just your background, an occluded background. Careful when using your V-Ray dome light, because if it's invisible, you'll see the alpha. If not, you won't see it. Our multimat, and as you can see, it's very sharp, and we can pick very nicely our certain areas of our render. Self-illumination, so this is also really nice because in post-production I may be able to select the areas which are lit up by themselves, and I might also be able to just create a glow on it if I just mess around a little with the blending modes and the blur. So let's just look progressively, more multi-mats. That one's for the trees, but it's not showing because I haven't rendered diffuse filter. This is also really nice because it just gives you the diffuse pass. So if something's burned out, just through the diffuse filter, the lighting and the reflection, I may be able to get it back. And that's generally how films are made. They just blend all these passes and they just can make whatever really with the lighting and the refraction and the reflection even. And then we have our extra textures, which I've used V-Ray dirt material. What this does is just give you an ambient occlusion pass. Here it's very small because the scale of the model itself I've made quite big. But I'll just show you how you do that very quickly. So I'll hit M, and then we have our material editor popping up. I'll add that, our extra text. So there we go. It's already added. And I'll go into that and I will create a instance, which it already has done. And so we have our radius. I've set to 0.3, maybe 0.6 might be best. And just leave the rest as is, and that will give you your extra text. You can then up the subdivisions if you think that it just looks too noisy. That's with you. Now on to our V-Ray lighting pass. Then again, we get our lighting pass. We don't get any refraction whatsoever or reflection, just basically what's coming off the light. And normals, and we'll see our normals pass. And what happens with the normals is I generally like normals because I can select exactly the part of the model I want. Sometimes by combining a multimat and a normal, I can just get that tiny selection that I need. For instance, these pink faces, as you see here, if I really needed to bring those out and just make those all lit up, for instance, I could quite easily select those, and I wouldn't have to detach and make that a single element or multimat. Also, that brings me up to this the RGB, and as you can see, I've put in the dome. And I'll just try and bring up the color material editor slate. So here we go. That's our light that I've put in the dome. And just to show you that you can, through the material, you can get that nice gloss. You can see the sun going there. And I can bring that out exactly through the reflection pass. And you can see I can get more of that if I overlay it and just get more of that going. That just shows you exactly what's being reflected. I'll show you now the refraction pass, and yeah, it's just if I want that glass, if I want to bring it out a little more, there I have it. As you can see, it really probably wasn't worth having that interior, but it just gives it a little something extra. I'm just so high up, I won't be able to see it that well. And render ID, as you can see, it's really not as sharp as the multimats. The multimats are fantastic, and they're really nice to work with, just for their sharpness, really. And that brings me on to our final one, Z depth. Now, what is Z depth? Z depth is a basic, I would say a basic fog and atmosphere pass. And what it does is it actually, if you overlay it, you will be able, as you'll see in future lessons I'll be giving, you will be able to see that it kind of creates that haze and foggy look that just kind of gives a certain depth. And it really helps, and it's an easy one. I mean, you can use it for so many things within compositing, but I tend to use it just for a quick pass to actually give it some depth, because I like to paint in my own depth, but it just looks really nice. And I think that actually concludes our render passes. So just to conclude our rendering, I will go into the comment and we will talk about our render sizes. I actually like to render at 5K. I think that's minimum these days, which is more than double of HD. I really like this because it will give me the liberty in the future to really get into the detail and to be able to paint. And once I compress it down, you won't be able to see those paint strokes, and it really blends nicely. But I think actually for this specific one, I will probably go to 3500. I would say that because what's going to happen is I might get a little bit of some dodginess in the video, and it just might not be as smooth as it usually is. So for this purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to keep it at 3500. So in the next tutorial, we'll be talking about post-production and getting into post-production, and we'll be learning how to bring all these pieces into your file and to finally start getting into these post-production world of map painting in ArchViz. I hope you've enjoyed this part so far, and I look forward to seeing you in the next chapter.